for us to carry on debating. Anyway, very good evening to you and welcome to Back of the Net Live on a Monday night. Delighted to be back again, delighted that you can join us. Thank you so much. And as we always say, if you want to get involved in the show, please do leave your comments and we'll get them onto the screen and we'll try and answer all your questions. That's what we're here for. The football community at this time, across grassroots, that's what we want to do. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. All you need to do is click subscribe, hit the bell, you get notified whenever we go live. And you won't miss a thing. And we've got loads of shows, Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and they're all a little bit different as well, which is great. But I'm delighted to say that tonight I'm joined by our very own Frank Wilson.
Hi, guys.
Eating, what was it? What were you eating?
Homemade honeycomb.
Nice, yeah, brilliant. Making us all a little bit jealous now. Also joined tonight by James Cummins. Let's see if we can get James up on the screen. There we go, James.
Hi, guys.
It's got a rather. I think everyone. I'm told, because there's loads of live streams at the moment. What everyone's doing is just having a look in the background, just having a little nose, seeing what people are doing when they're live streaming, and people will be trying to see what books are on James's shelf up there.
You don't want to see what's on my collection. There's too much stuff. To be honest, there's a lot.
There's loads.
It looks like a Valentine's card behind him, Ben.
Yeah, I think there might be. But let's move on swiftly and introduce David Richardson of Back of the Net and the non-league paper as well. Is with us tonight. Evening, David. You've got, is that a Brazil shirt in the background?
Signed Merstham shirt, actually.
Oh, is it?
It arrived. Safe and sound. Nice one, David.
Yeah. Class of 2019-20.
So everybody that's watching tonight, just have a little look in the background. They're going to just be looking at David's curtains, just saying, all right, yeah, see what he's done there, see what patterns he's gone through. Listen, we got loads to talk about tonight. What we try and do on the shows is not cover too much old ground. So Friday night show was all about the finances, the Premier League, furloughing staff, and all that kind of thing, and then relating it back to the grassroots game. Really important that a package has been put together for the teams lower down in the pyramid, and the guys talked about that on Friday night as well, and when that money would get to the clubs and all that kind of thing. We want to talk a little bit tonight about the 30% player wage cut. It's not happened yet in the Premier League. Let us know your thoughts on that. But it's there and it's being proposed, and there's all sorts of opposition from the players, the Premier League. There's a bit of a standoff at the moment. They're sort of saying, look, this should happen, and a lot of professional players, ex-professional players, the likes of Gary Lineker, Wayne Rooney, just to name a couple, sort of coming out and saying football's being picked on here because there are a lot of other people that could do things like this. A very good point that was made on one of the live debates from Downing Street, if you watch them, was about Virgin and the fact that they've applied for government bailout. And there was all sorts of things about Richard Branson, the fact that he lives on a tax haven on Necker Island, all this kind of stuff. So it's really sparked quite a lot of debate, hasn't it, Frank, amongst the world, really, not just football, but everybody's got an opinion on this.
Yeah, they have. And unfortunately, depends which way you look at it, Ben. A lot of us see the Premier League footballers as the super wealthy, super elite of society. So I just think they come under a lot of stick when it comes to the sort of the charitable side of life, whether it's what's going on at the minute and what the governing bodies are sort of saying that they should be doing with their own sort of wage scales. But again, it just comes back to the fact that I think that we as a society and as fans hold them on such a high pedestal, and sort of accompanied with that is the financial burden that they have to carry because they're the highest paid sportsmen in England. So it's an interesting one.
I want to ask whether they're being used as scapegoats. Well, that's been discussed quite a lot. We'll get your thoughts on that in a moment. But David, I want to come to you very quickly. Obviously, you have a lot of dealings with non-league clubs in your position with the non-league paper. What's the sort of vibe amongst non-league clubs and from your view on the Premier League wage cuts?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of non-league clubs are going down the furlough route, which I think is pretty understandable. As for Premier League clubs, clearly it's a bit of a joke, really, that the likes of Liverpool, who made a £42 million profit in their most recent accounts, decided to put their non-playing staff on this scheme. Obviously, they have since reversed that decision, which is good of them. But nonetheless, you'd think that they would have recognised that in the first place. I think really it's probably what to expect from non-league clubs. I think, of course, lower down you would say as well that there's not as many contracted players, not as many staff involved at a club, so it wouldn't necessarily come into play too much down there. But nonetheless, I think as far as non-league goes, it's a good way for clubs to effectively survive. But yeah, I don't agree that the Premier League club should be going down that route.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. As I said, James, we talked about this a little bit on the show on Friday. So we're just now looking at that 30% of Premier League players' wages, all sorts of negotiations going on. It's hard to know what's right, isn't it, really, at the moment? It's hard to know what should be done, what shouldn't. Premier League footballers pointing in the direction of businesses and other wealthy people, and most of the public pointing at footballers as they do. And I have to say, a lot of people that perhaps don't watch the game and aren't fans of football will always say, oh, they get paid so much money. They should be giving all their wages to this, that and the other.
Yeah, I think it's very understandable that Premier League footballers will always come under the spotlight of any kind of financial takings, especially at a time like this. I personally believe that because of their high-profile nature within sport, they are one of the highest-paid sportsmen in the sporting world. I think that they should be putting 30% of their wage into investing into those areas that do need it most, especially within the NHS and other key areas that are reliant on funds and need the money. But it is a very difficult position to actually put yourself in. And you can sort of counter-argue that idea that if it's one set of sportsmen and sportswomen who have been subject to this particular demand, why can't the rest? But then again, you look at other teams and other sports which are investing in supporting key services and key workers. You feel that with football, it's only going to be a matter of time. And if you look around this particular set of circumstances we're in at the moment, this question was always bound to happen. It was bound to come to a point where players and clubs that earn so much money like they do.
I think we might have lost James just for a moment there. That does happen to James. I don't know why. It doesn't seem to happen to anyone else on the show, but it always happens to James. Are you back, James?
I'm back.
Yeah, there we go.
Current. I always tell people, don't call me when I'm on these calls. But on the other hand, they call me.
It's all right.
But never mind. What was I?
James James is going to be on a computer from next week anyway, so it'll all be fine. I think we got the gist of it, James, and totally agree. I think there's a lot of pressure on players to do that. It'd be really interesting. I think David, we say this a lot on the show. It'd be really interesting to see what happens in the Premier League, because the Premier League is put on a pedestal and is seen so regarded as such hierarchy to all of football. And we're looking at the Premier League and we're always saying, what are they doing? Because everyone else is going to follow suit. I want to change the subject a little bit, David, and ask you about the National League. Now, since we last spoke, the National League have said that they've suspended football indefinitely. What does that mean? Because it's coming out from UEFA now as well. Are they just following whatever happens with UEFA and the Premier League? Is it safe to say that the National League are doing exactly what everyone's doing? No one knows. No one can see what's going to happen. And they're holding on to that hope that maybe, just maybe, they'll be able to finish the season.
Yeah, I think so. I think the National League, probably throughout this process, their preference has been to try and resume the season at some point. Obviously, the decision was made at steps 3 to 7 to end their seasons and make them null and void, which obviously hasn't gone down well with a lot of clubs and even some leagues as well regarding that decision. But with the National League, it is complicated because of the 2 promotion places up into League 2 and obviously the 2 down from there. So I think they have been biding their time with that, which I think is sensible. But of course, like I said, it does somewhat depend as well on the Football League. So they are looking at what the EFL are doing, looking at what the Premier League are doing. Like you say, obviously now UEFA have come out with that saying, the season, will be resumed at some point. Obviously, FIFA have also said about player contracts being able to be extended. So that does pave the way for things to start up again. But obviously the National League need to consider the impacts in the meantime on their clubs. They need to still consider the impact of extending player contracts, things like that. So still quite a lot of sorting out to be done. But at the moment, it does seem that the general consensus is that at some point football will return. There's meetings this week that the National League are carrying out. I think they're going through quite a perhaps rigorous process with their clubs to try and find out what their preferences are. That was maybe one of the big things that came out of the Step 3 to 7 issue of the past couple of weeks, really, that leagues and clubs weren't properly consulted in their view by the FA going forwards with what they wanted to happen. So we'll see. Like I said, still a lot of sorting out to be done.
Yeah, in fact, there's a piece in the paper I saw this weekend about clubs that are urging the National League to make the right decision, and when they say that, I assume that they're meaning to think about the global circumstances rather than just football.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is a debate that has probably been split into one side of people saying, well, there's clearly a bigger issue of a global pandemic, whilst probably other people who accept that is the case. But at the same time, football does mean a lot to people. People have put in a lot of time into not only this season, but getting to this point, so they'll feel that they want to try and continue things.
We've talked, as we said, we've talked about this quite a lot on the show. Do let us know your thoughts. You can get your comments in across social media. We'll get them up on the screen and we'll read some of them out as well. We've talked about what's going on. I think we understand where everything is at the moment. It's on a little bit of a plateau where people are just not sure what's happening. But we'd like to get to the real issues. The real issue here is, will football continue? I know we've asked that question before, but the more the weeks go on, the more the shows go on, the more we maybe have to look at. I put in a group chat today, and I was actually trying to get this up and see exactly what I wrote, but it was regarding the whether football would continue. And I think, James, it was actually answering one of your questions earlier, and I just want to go back to that. I put one... let's have a look. Let's just go back to this here. So James asked me whether... I think you posted an article, didn't you, James, in the group and said, look, will the season be extended? And I put one... There's no viable exit strategy at the moment, only containment from a government point of view. And again, they were asked that question today, and again, they're not answering it. And I think the reason they're not answering it is because this is going to go on for a while. 2, there's no evidence whether people can catch the virus again. And 3, there's no progress regarding testing on a huge scale. So when you look at those things on government level, Frank, surely that... And I'll ask you for your opinion, I guess, first and foremost, but surely that means that football just has no chance to carry on at the moment.
Yeah, it's not looking good, is it, for football? I mean, the points that you raise and the things that you just mentioned there, obviously I was privy to that conversation and saw what you'd put in the WhatsApp group earlier, and I totally agree. I just think that there are too many issues to be resolved at the minute. I mean, the healthcare situation at the minute, and sort of what legislates that, and what we are going to have to deem as safe now in terms of society and what we can and can't do. I think there's just going to be too long a wait and too many processes to sort of really be meticulous about and make sure that we've got 100% right. Because in my sort of non-scientific, non-doctorate background, I just think that one slip up, one fault, one stone not turned could cause a huge setback. And I mean, even if you look at that Scottish... Again, Fergus, I've forgotten her name, the lady that's the healthcare minister for Scotland.
Yeah, resigned now, hasn't she?
Even little situations like that, which I can sort of parallel to what we're talking about here. You're talking about people in positions of power and authority that are the not just decision makers, but are the welfare officers for us, for everybody. they make little mistakes, and you see the repercussions of that and the hysteria that brought out today. Piers Morgan absolutely battered her. Don't know if anybody watched it. And I just think that there is just going to be too many too many processes that we need to resolve fully, and we need time in order to sort of allow that to happen. And I just can't see the window of opportunity for football being as quickly and as short as we all need it to. And my real concern now is a football season next season. A football season. That's my doubt now. How I'm starting to think, how is that going to be possible?
So if it wasn't for the broadcasters and in particular Sky and BT, and if they for some reason, however that worked, said, look, we'll just add a year on, or there's some sort of insurance policy that covers that, and the clubs didn't have to worry about that, and BT and Sky didn't have to worry about that, and that wasn't a thing. If it wasn't such an enormous amount, would we have seen the league already and all the leagues come out and say, look, we're just done for the summer? Do you think this is literally just about broadcast rights, David?
Perhaps, but I still think for the likes of Liverpool, who are on course to win their first Premier League title, I think they would still want to see it out. But yeah, at the same time, £725 million is quite a lot of money for broadcast companies to still have to claim back off Premier League clubs. So I can understand them wanting to finish the season from that point of view.
And James, Charlotte mentioned this on the show quite a few times, but Liverpool, I understand, and if you're a Liverpool fan, then don't get me wrong, just because I'm a United fan, as you can probably see behind, doesn't mean that I don't understand that this is a huge thing for Liverpool. But James, for Liverpool, surely that there's the achievement is great, but they've not finished. And what kind of success is it now? What kind of celebration would it be now?
I think the celebration is on paper for Liverpool is the fact that they've actually been in a position where they could win the title outright. I think that's the most important thing that all fans of Liverpool Football Club should take on board. They should also celebrate the fact that Jurgen Klopp has created a team over a succession of seasons and created a team which is worthy of winning a title or challenging the very best, not only in the Premier League, but also in Europe. I think that's the key thing which I need to remember at the end of the day.
But if we were if we were talking about any other season, if we were talking, I'm not saying it's not as important if it's Manchester City going for their third title, but if Manchester City were in the position that Liverpool were in now, and they've just won back-to-back titles, does this become less important if it was Man City in that position now?
It's a loaded question, Ben.
So I'd like to ask a few. But that's part of this, isn't it? It's Liverpool haven't won it since 1990.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. It's relative to the team that's in the situation. Liverpool obviously haven't won it. There's a majorly heightened importance to the season being finished for that very reason. And I think that's applied pressure. I think that's the sort of football politics that plays into this at the minute, in my opinion, in terms of why. Maybe not why the decision is why the season is going to be expunged now. I don't necessarily believe that if it was anybody else or a different scenario that we'd be seeing reports of the Premier League being expunged now. But I do think that there might be more indication as to what the outcome's going to be, as opposed to what it looks like at the minute, just being quite a prolonged, drawn-out process.
Do you think part of football's problem and part of the Premier League's problem now, and I'll just put this question out, is that morally, every opportunity, and we saw it with Liverpool saying that they were going to furlough their staff, we saw it as well with the players' wages, people are attacking football, especially the Premier League. So are they having to be really careful that they announce behind closed doors, for example, in June, that people will see that as, again, the Premier League doing what they want? How many staff will have to be there on a match day, even if you've got no fans? How many people will go as part of the media? How many people will be there from the club? We're not just talking, for anyone watching, thinks we're just talking about 22 players are going to play behind closed doors. You're talking about teams of, 30, 40 from each side, medical staff, your tactical, you've got staff for everything. You've got coaching staff for absolutely every scenario. These backroom staff are huge. So you're talking hundreds of people that would be mixing on a match day, even if it was behind closed doors. Do you think part of football's problem now is that they're going to, the people are going to have a go at them if they announce something behind closed doors because they're being different to everybody else?
I mean, do you even think that footballers want to play behind closed doors, Ben?
Well, that's another question. That's a really good question. Hard one to answer that without asking a footballer.
Yeah, of course. I just think that the whole package of football now, and how much exposure it gets, and how much media attention it craves, and that footballers crave. I'm not accusing footballers of anything in particular. I'm just saying that there's an enormous vanity that goes with football, isn't there? And it being the mainstream sport of let's just say England at the minute. I just can't see teams and players wanting to sort of reduce football to its absolute barest in terms of exposure just to continue the season, unless you're a Liverpool player. Unless you're in the Liverpool setup. Everybody else, they want the glitz and the glamour that goes with it. They want the media's attention. If they're not going to get that, to them it's almost like the equivalent of non-league football, isn't it?
Yeah.
If they were forced to play out the season in the way that we're talking about it, it would probably be the closest that any professional footballers ever come, other than, a kickabout with their mates, which I guess they rarely have. So like the non-league stripped back environment. Be interesting.
Okay, so what I want to do is I want to ask now, the three of you, what do you think, it can be yes or no if you want, do you think that this football season on any level, because I think now that the steps 3 to 9 have done and have expunged all their results, I think it now comes down to the National League being on the same as the Football League, and the Football League will be the same as the Premier League. Whatever the Premier League does, nobody else is going to carry on without them. So do you think that this season is done for everybody? Do you think it's just a matter of getting that announcement out, and we are not going to see, we'd be lucky if we see football in August?
Yes, I think it's done. I think there's more important things we need to remember at the end of the day and resolve before we can continue football again. So that's my view going first. I think,
but not your opinion, James. Sorry, not your opinion. I know that maybe your heart would say, "Look, this is what I would do or what I'd like to see." But what you actually think is going to happen, what you think it's done. You think that is what's going to happen, whether you agree with it or not.
I think in honesty, it's done. I can't see the season carrying on for various different reasons, even though the financial burden is there, which I think is wrong at this time. But I can't feasibly see the season carrying on.
David?
I think the Premier League will find a way.
Because of the finances?
Yeah, I think so. I just think it's too powerful, too many sort of stakeholders involved who have probably a lot to lose and gain really from it going ahead. With non-league, I'd be amazed if the step 3 to 7 decision got overturned. I just can't see that happening really. Obviously there's sort of the legal case behind it at the moment, with some lawyers getting involved. But the thing is, if they reverse the decision, then is there going to be another legal case from clubs who might get relegated as a result or whatever, or have some sort of financial implication to that? As for the National League, I don't know. I think that's maybe the hardest one really. Like I said earlier, it sort of comes down to the EFL really as well. I think they're trying to do everything they can to get it played again. The problem is you just can't set a date on it because you don't know how long this is going to go on for, and at what point it will be safe to go back to normal really.
And Frank?
Yeah, just echo David's points there. I just think that when you look at the optimism of when things are safe to start sort of slowly resuming again, I just feel like Premier League football is like David said, it's so powerful that I feel like it's on par with, some of what the government consider to be, key jobs, key workers, key opportunities. I genuinely think that Premier League footballers come under the bracket of NHS and things like that. I know that sounds stupid, and I'm being a little bit far-fetched by saying that, but my point is, I just feel like they are valued at such a high importance that I think that if the next thing after, key workers and that those sorts of jobs are relaxed and are allowed to start to continue, then I genuinely think that Premier League football will be the next thing, above 100,000 other jobs and trades and occupations that could also go back. And I think that there is a chance.
We'll come back.
I just want to put a question out there, guys. Sorry to bother you. I just want to ask a particularly quick question. I know that the financial standing of football, especially the Premier League, is extremely important. And it's a question to go out there before we move any further onwards. Do you feel it's morally correct for the Premier League to continue even if things are relaxed at the moment? And regardless of the importance of whether the Premier League is within a financial or workers' point of view, do you think it's morally correct for it to continue?
That's a good question.
I think it depends at what stage the virus is at, really. I think probably over the last few days, morals in football probably have showed that the likes of Mike Ashley and Daniel Levy and Liverpool until this evening, in terms of putting their staff on this government scheme when they have all the riches that they have at a football club, probably shows that there's sort of little morals really at the top of the game. But ultimately, I think the decision of football restarting clearly comes back down to what the government say on the issue. So it's sort of in the government's hands, really, as to whether football would start again. But then I guess you are right in the sense that obviously, would it be too soon to be filling stadiums with 40,000, 50,000 people straight away off the bat? If say they do it as soon as sort of the government say it, I guess that's something to take into consideration.
We'll come back to this in a minute, because I've got one more question on this to ask, but I want to bring up one of the comments that Sean, who's a South Shields fan, so I remember him from a couple of weeks ago, and he's just said that Step 7 has now been changed and will be decided on points per game. Has anyone heard anything to say that that's true? He says, my source was several clubs announcing it on Twitter. We'll certainly check that out. But if that is the case, I'm really surprised. I mean, I know it's Step 7 we're talking about now, but that's still setting precedents for reverse, David.
Yeah, it does. Obviously, is that confirmed anywhere? I'm not sure.
I'm not. Yeah, no, we haven't had it confirmed yet. Just Sean, obviously, saying it on Facebook at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So obviously, these things do tend to leak out of clubs and leagues as a sort of the way in football. But no, I mean, if it's true, that's obviously an interesting revelation. I'm not quite sure how that works with sort of the rest of the pyramid. I'm just sort of slightly confused as to how that would happen, given it was the FA's decision to make it null and void in the first place.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
I guess they're assuming that they've changed it around for Step 7. Yeah, I'm not too sure really, without sort of looking into it a little bit more.
So one other thing, just going back to the Premier League conundrum, which seems to get greater and greater with every day that goes by, and every development that happens in the UK and obviously in the government each day. I asked this question 2 weeks ago. Do you two of you said, and David and Frank, that you think that the Premier League will, and I quote, find a way? Do you think that finding a way, sooner or later we're going to get to the stage that finding a way to finish the season may be their only option because of the financial side of it, but finding a way will have an impact on next season, whether that be, we said it before, play each other every club once, whether it means only one legs in Europe, only no League Cup, but at some point finding a way is going to mean perhaps an impact on next season.
Yeah, it will, but I imagine that if that decision does get made and the FA do find this solution, then I reckon there's going to be very, very clear guidelines and sort of consequences of next season. I don't think it will just be as simple as, whatever the solution is to finish this season up until whatever date that is. I think that there'll have to be something put in place, literature that actually says, this is how it's going to impact next season, and in order for football to resume and finish now, this is what's going to have to happen as a consequence of that. Which I guess is the argument against David and I, isn't it, Ben? In terms of us thinking that the Premier League will find that way. If you think about that just for a few moments in your own head, it surely would have some consequences and implications to next season. And if that's the case, how do they pass that through? How do they sign that off? I just think that, you've changed my mind again now.
An interesting,
no, I'm not so sure.
An interesting point. I will get David and James's view in a moment, but an interesting point from Sean, who's just said the reason that they've changed their mind is because it wasn't ratified by the committee, and it was due to be ratified by the Football Association Committee. They were due to meet today to ratify steps 3 to 6, but that's now been delayed. So potentially we could be seeing some sort of adjustment on this decision. And one of the things that's worth considering, I'm not 100% sure on this and how it works, but do the clubs get a vote in the Premier League to whether the season, for example, would be expunged this year, whether they would see any sort of knock-on effects, as Frank's just alluded to, for next season? And if they do all get a vote, then surely a lot of clubs, for most of the Premier League clubs, and we touched on this, it's going to be much more beneficial to start again for next season than it is to complete this season.
I think it's going to be a very, very tough test for anybody to get to a position where we will be able to start this again within a particular amount of time. I still stand by the fact that the Premier League season is probably going to conclude itself before we can start a new season again. And then the next question is, as a result, is where do you start the season after that? I think the alternative option is if we go through the worst of this and we get to the summer, there'll still be the restrictions in place up until, I would say, normal life will not be there until next year. So I'll be very, very surprised if we can get any kind of football up and running again. But there's a big, massive question mark on everything. I think that's the overriding factor we're facing at this particular moment in time, is the fact that this is an unprecedented event that nobody's experienced before. We're not sure how to progress any further with something like this, with football or sport in general. So it's a case of taking it pretty much day by day and finding out where the next answer lies from that. That's the biggest, I think, hurdle we're facing at this particular moment in time.
Ben, there can't be a vote, what you mentioned in your question, there can't be a vote from Premier League clubs as to what's going to happen. That just can't, it surely can't work like that. Because as you've just said there, how many clubs are going to benefit more from expunging the season, or from it, being as normal as how we all see it, instead of it having to sort of change according to having to finish this season no matter what? There's no way that they're going to offer up clubs, representatives from clubs, to become some sort of consortium of decision makers. It just, if that's the case, then every single team would be a grudge game as and when they play Liverpool. Yeah. Whenever the season comes back, every single match will be a derby. It will be the Corona derby against every other team that they play throughout the whole season, because they wanted to take away something that Liverpool are so close to getting. But
David, how does it work? Do you know, in the National League, do the clubs get a lot of say in that, or is it just asking their opinions and then making the decisions?
Yeah, I think the National League are being pretty careful at the moment to consult their clubs. Whether it comes down to an exact vote, I'm not quite sure, but I think maybe the idea is that clubs will have some sort of say. Obviously, it sort of depends what the question is exactly that they're voting on. But it does seem to be the way that, given the disappointment in the way the FA handled it, in the opinion of some clubs and leagues last week, lower down the pyramid, I think the National League are being pretty careful now, just to make sure that they do take everything on board. I think there were suggestions of a vote of clubs, which obviously the majority comes down to league positions of teams, really. Generally, the teams at the top of the divisions are going to be voting for a restart, and the ones down the bottom will be saying, let's call it off and come back next year sort of as we were. So I think that's the situation. And like I said, I think the National League are being careful at the moment.
Yeah, it's fascinating, really, this whole football situation. Again, very respectful, which I think football is to the situation in the UK and the situation globally, and certainly we are when we discuss this. We realise, and we said this when we started the shows a couple of weeks ago, that there are far bigger things going on in the world, but football has to be sorted out, and it's going to be interesting to see how it does get sorted out. I think that there are really good points on the show tonight, and please keep your thoughts coming in across social media. Let us know what you think. Will football get sorted out from the top down? Will everybody just follow the Premier League? Will there be any kind of revotes happening or decisions made again across steps 3 to 6? A lot of clubs appealed. It wasn't totally ratified. Maybe that decision will be changed. I personally can't see how non-league has any other option than to finish right now, and I think that includes the National League North and South and the National League. We could talk about this all night. We won't do that. Do continue to get your thoughts into us, and I'm sure we'll continue this on another show. We're back on Wednesday and Friday night, don't forget, as well. Wednesday's Coach's Corner, and Friday, the Extra Time show. So much to talk about, and that will be with Charlotte and Jim Cooper and Jodie Brown, amongst others. Right, let's do Who Am I? I love this part of the show. It's where you can join in. Do let us know, because the panel can't see what you say, so let us know if you know the answer. Frank really enjoyed this last week, didn't you, Frank?
Yeah, I was fantastic at it. I'm going to be even better this week.
Okay, so there's a theme this week. So if you haven't played Who Am I before, it's really easy. You'll get it straight away of how to play. You've basically got to guess the footballer from the clues that I'm giving, and it's the date of birth, it's the appearances and the goals. But tonight's a twist, because there are no goals. It's just appearances and the clubs that they played for. And there is a theme tonight, and I know that this was one of the criticisms last week, that you need to know a strong theme. This tonight is Premier League goalkeepers who have reached 100 clean sheets. That's the theme. Premier League goalkeepers who have reached 100 clean sheets. We're going to do 5 of these. James is clearly the Who Am I champion. Let us know as soon as you know what the answers are. Right, let's get things going, and let's get a little bit of tense music. This is our way that we end the show. Right, Premier League goalkeepers who have reached 100 clean sheets. Who am I? I was born on the 6th of October 1972. Actually share their birthday with me. I started my career in 1990, and I was playing for Maconi Stallions, where I made 58 appearances. In 1994 I was at Dynamo Dresden and only made 2 appearances. In 95 I played for FC Karlslautern and made 4 appearances. In 1996 I made my first appearance in England with Bradford City, where I made 13 appearances. In 1997 I moved to Middlesbrough, making 367 appearances for Middlesbrough. Before, in 2008, I played for Fulham and made 172 appearances in goal. James.
Mark Schwarzer.
Mark Schwarzer, he's got it. James has got it. He always seems to get it, and James has done it once more. I really thought Frank was going to get that one because there was a Fulham connection.
Yeah, I couldn't. You didn't even get the sentence out before that little hobbit managed to get the answer.
Yeah, James has got that one. Right, let's do this. Let's do the next one. So do play along. Let us know if you get it in the comments. It's Premier League goalkeepers who have reached 100 clean sheets. I was born on May the 18th, 1971. I started my career in 1995, where I played for Brøndby. I made 10 appearances. In 1995, I also played for Galatasaray and made 30 appearances. In 1996, I was playing for Columbus Crew, made 38 appearances, before making a move to England in 1997, where I played for Liverpool, but I only made 25 appearances in a 3-year spell. The biggest amount of games I had came between 2000 and 2008, where I made 290 appearances and actually scored 1 goal for Blackburn Rovers.
James.
James, who is it?
Brad Friedel.
Is correct, James. You got it. Brad Friedel is the correct answer. Come on, guys. Where are you? He actually went on to play for Aston Villa, 114 games for Aston Villa, and played for Tottenham as well, 50 games for Tottenham, and he did score that 1 goal for Blackburn Rovers. Do you remember it?
No.
Premier League goalkeepers.
Yeah, I do.
100 clean sheets. I was born... Who am I? I was born on the 19th of April, 1975. I began my career in 1992 with MP and made 64 appearances. In 1995, I played for VPS and made 54 appearances before I moved to England in 1997, where I played until 2012 and made 474 appearances for Bolton Wanderers.
Usually Escalon.
Yeah.
It is correct. David's got that
I
time.
didn't say my name.
It's fine. We'll give you that because we don't want James to win, so that's fine.
Oh, thanks.
It's me and David versus James.
Yeah. So UC Jääskeläinen did go on to play for West Ham
I
with...
think Frank's audio's gone, hasn't it? It doesn't seem to be saying. Your audio gone, Frank.
Yeah, Frank's just pretending he's out of the game.
I had problems with it last week, David, as well.
Yeah, he did. Had a lot of problems with it last week. UC Jääskeläinen played for West Ham, Wigan and AT Made 56 appearances for Finland as well. Okay, we've got 2 more.
Ben, sorry, James, could you spell Jääskeläinen?
For an extra point.
JASSIKAN.
No, you're wrong. You've gone wrong already. Fine, right. Let's move on. Okay, so who am I? I was born on the 20th of April 1976. I made my first appearance in football in 1994. I played for Blackburn Rovers and made 2 appearances. I also had loan spells with Swindon Town and Sunderland before I really made my name in 1997, where I played until 2009 and made 354 appearances in goal for Newcastle United.
Shay Gibbon.
It's correct, Frank. You've got it. That's it. Frank has got one. This is a big moment on the show. Frank has managed to get a Who Am I? Okay, so it's 2 to James, 1 apiece to Frank and David. But I will give Frank and David the win if they manage to get this, because they're almost playing as a team. So this is the decider. It's 2 apiece. Who am I? I was born on the 12th of June in 1976. In 1993, I began my career with Odense. I didn't make an appearance, but I still began my career with them. I had loan spells at Vigil and Svendborg before I made 171 appearances from 1998 to 2003 for Sunderland. In 2003...
James.
Yes.
Thomas Sorensen.
Is correct, James. Thomas Sorensen is the answer. James wins 3-2. Would you guys have got that if I'd have gone on to say that he played for Aston Villa, Stoke City and Melbourne City?
No.
No, okay, so James is the worthy winner. Frank, how much do you love that game?
I got one right.
Yeah, you did. You got one tonight, and David got one as well. So it was a close run thing.
Some sort of non-league managers. Who am I? Next time.
Well, maybe we should. Yeah, we had a few guesses. Neil Baker's got involved, and he said Jens Lehmann at one point. I'm not sure who that was for. Sean got Friedel. Jordan got UC Jääskeläinen, and so did Sean as well. Yes, there's a few people there that have guessed right. Well done for playing along wherever you are. It's just about it for the show tonight. We're just about done. Final thoughts, guys?
I'm intrigued to know how the homemade honeycomb is.
I've eaten half of it.
You've eaten half of it already?
Yeah, but I think I'll stop there.
Okay. Watch your teeth.
Yeah,
Frank,
exactly. They're bad enough already.
I've got some good news for you, Frank. Next week, next Monday night, I think it's me, you, David and Jodie. So James isn't on the show, so he won't be playing in Who Am I?
Oh, okay.
We may have to
Jodie will be at that.
we may have to rely on the audience.
Friends, I know who I'll be ringing.
Well, we might have to we might have to rely on the audience actually, because I think that it could be that we have a few that go right to the end. No, it's fine. Listen, thank you so much for your company tonight, David, Frank, and James. And that's it for another show. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Don't forget, keep your comments coming in, and we'll keep responding and reading those out. Do tell someone about the show. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell, and it notifies you whenever we go live. And we'll be doing it again on Wednesday and on Friday. Coach's Corner returns on Wednesday if you're a coach, all the way across the grassroots game up into professional football. You don't want to miss that. And then on Friday night, Charlotte will be back with Friday Night Extra Time. Plenty more football content for you, and we have a surprise for you on Sunday night, but we'll tell you more about that as the week goes on. Take care, enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you on Wednesday.